Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant good evening to you wherever you may be. This is Comfortably Zoned Radio, and it's time for Dodgers baseball, a tale of two cities from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. I'm your host, Peter Trunk, and my co-host, as usual, is Ron Rabinovitz. Hello, Ron. How are you?
How are you, Peter? I'm great. How are you doing?
I know you're great, boy. You're a big star now. You're all over the place. You're on television. You're on the radio. You're everywhere. You're ubiquitous.
Yeah, it was a big week for me.
Well, it's a shame you couldn't have been at Dodger Stadium when they unveiled that statue of Jackie.
I know. I heard from Sharon, and had a nice note from her.
Sharon is Jackie's daughter.
Jackie's daughter.
Jackie's daughter.
Yeah.
Don't take it for granted, Ron, that all of our listeners know who everyone is.
No, they don't know. That's right. You're right.
Okay.
Sharon Robinson, who's just a terrific person. And I know David Robinson, the son, very well.
Right.
I've met Rachel several times. So it was beautiful to see them there. It was beautiful to see Vin Scully and, Sandy Koufax and Lasorda and everybody else on that dais. It was terrific.
Uh-huh. Yeah. When I first saw the unveiling of the statue, the angle that I saw initially, I said to myself, what the heck is that? I saw it from a weird angle, and it looked like Jackie was falling down. Then when they showed it from the front with the B on the cap and the Dodgers across the chest and he's going into his slide, I said, wow, that is perfect.
Wasn't that awesome? It was just fabulous.
Yeah.
They did a terrific job.
And he's going into home plate. Did you notice that?
That's right. He
going into home plate. He stole it 19 times.
That's right. He sure did. It was great.
Wow.
Terrific.
Wonderful. It was terrific.
Yeah.
Really a great day out there for the Dodgers. They're not doing too well, though. I don't know if
they're not.
Make a trade. I don't know if they're going to make a trade for Ryan Braun. I don't know.
There's rumors.
You know,
left hitting pitching. They're not hitting left-handed pitching.
They're not. And the caveat to the whole thing is that Gutierrez, who is an excellent hitter against left-handed pitching, is now on the DL.
He's on the DL.
Which, you know what? They're going to have to do something, I believe.
Yep.
And May the 14th, which is just a few weeks away, Ryan Braun gets his 10 years and 5 years with the same club status, and he can nix any deal he wants to. So if the Dodgers are going to go get Ryan Braun, they got to do it before May the 14th.
I understand, though, Peter, that he has said that one of the teams that he would agree to go to was the Dodgers.
Really?
Because I think he's a California boy, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah, so I hope that's true.
We'll see how that shakes out.
They had the same problem last year. They couldn't hit left-handed pitching.
No.
So, not good.
No, it's not. It's not good at all. And you know what? Getting off to a jackrabbit start would have been great because the Giants are floundering.
Right, they are. And in the end, they're going to be in the hunt. So,
of course they are. Of course they are.
Yeah.
Well, we have a great guest tonight, Ronnie. We have a man named Bill Hall, who is a Dodger historian. He's a little younger than the both of us, but he's an author, and he's already published. He's got a book out there, and he's working on another book. And I'm going to let him explain the book that he's working on because I'll probably butcher it. But I can't wait to read it. I really can't. When I heard the outline, I said to myself, this is the book I'm going to get. And his name is Bill Hall, and we would like to welcome him to the show right now. Hello, Bill Hall.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Ron. Good evening, and thanks for having me join you. I'm thrilled for this opportunity. Hey, and this is the first time Peter and I have talked, although it's the second time that Ron and I have talked, because we are Facebook friends, and in the course of my research, I spoke with Ron last year. And the one novel that I've already published is a work of alternate history, taking real events, real people, and just imagining if history had taken a different turn. And so my book was inspired by something, if you have read The Boys of Summer, you may recall in one of Roger Kahn's interviews with Walter O'Malley, he talked about the fact that when the Dodger ownership situation was somewhat in flux in 1950 after the death of owner John Smith, Joe Kennedy Sr. looked very seriously at buying into the Dodger ownership. He eventually decided against that, but I thought, well, gee, what might have happened had Kennedy gone through with that, and Walter O'Malley ended up being squeezed out of the picture. So my working title, I won't give away everything that happens in the book by any means, but I think my working title will give you a clue to a key development. It's called Ebbets Field Forever. Imagine the Dodgers never leaving Brooklyn and never leaving Ebbets Field.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Wow.
So there'll be all kinds. Yeah, I hope so. And the reason I wanted to, of course, talk with you, Ron, was about your firsthand knowledge, your friendship with Jackie Robinson, and I tested out on you some theories I had about the things he might have done in this kind of alternate world. I've spoken with Irene Hodges, the daughter of Gil Hodges, about her father, and she really gave me some insights. And suffice it to say, I think probably, all the people associated with the Dodgers are going to be prominent in the book, but Jackie and Gil, the two Dodgers that I admire above all others, I love them all, but they will be kind of front and center and play a significant role with the team, both not only in their playing careers, but in their post-playing careers as well.
Great. Great. That sounds exciting.
How far along are you, Bill?
Well, I've got about a 15-page outline of events, and I'm going to say a few scenes that I've worked on that, I'd say maybe 20% done to the point where I want to get to. I've really got to sit down, and I'm hoping I'll be able to take a few days off this summer and really start pounding out a completed draft, tying it all together. But I'm just excited about it every time I sit down and have a chance to work with it. I mean, think about the possibilities. Sandy Koufax, a Brooklyn kid, having his glory years in Brooklyn. Don't forget Tommy Davis, another Brooklyn kid who finally also being courted, you probably know, by the Yankees. But then Al Campanis had a very clever idea. He said, Jackie, would you give young Mr. Davis a call? And he did, and that sealed Tommy's decision to sign with the Dodgers. But sadly, he didn't make it to the big club until they were on the opposite coast. But again, imagine how Brooklyn would have embraced Tommy Davis. And think about a minor leaguer who the Dodgers let get away after the 1954 season, but suppose that hadn't happened. Suppose Roberto Clemente had been a career Brooklyn Dodger instead of being a career Pirate. And just think, wow. Yeah, I mean, he he's a legend. He's beloved. He is, he is venerated as well. He should be. But I mean, just think of how in New York City in the 1960s, the explosion of the Puerto Rican population. I think Roberto Clemente in Brooklyn would have been to the 1960s what Babe Ruth was to the 1920s.
I agree with you. That's right. Can you imagine that team?
Oh yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yep. I think there would have been, well, actually, okay, I'll give it away. I won't tell you how many, but 1955 is not the end of the Brooklyn World Championships. It's only the beginning. It doesn't become quite as monotonous as the Yankees, because I think that would get boring. But
right,
yeah, it's going to be a history that I think every baseball fan should love it, and certainly everybody who loves and cherishes the memory of the Brooklyn Dodgers will.
Oh, fabulous! It sounds so wonderful, doesn't it, Peter?
It does. It sounds really great, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Maury Wills was signed by the Brooklyn Dodgers also.
Correct. He was actually signed as far back as 1951. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Took him 8 years to work his way to the big club.
When people say, how about Clemente playing in the Dodgers outfield all of those years, I always thought, that's great and everything. And don't get me wrong, Roberto Clemente was one of the greatest. I'm not belittling him at all, but I would always have loved to see what Frank Howard would have done full career in Ebbets Field.
Oh my God!
Yeah, career home run record maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Season record. I mean, yeah.
Unbelievable. He was. I mean, when he got a hold of one, it was like a moonshot. He went into orbit.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
And speaking of moonshots, if there's no Los Angeles Dodgers playing in the Coliseum, they probably don't trade for Wally Moon, of course. So no moonshots, but hey, there's going to be, I think the trade-offs are going to be okay in the eyes of most fans.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Let me ask you a question, Bill,
sure.
if I may. What gave you the idea, and it's a great idea, but what gave birth to this idea that you came up with?
Well, really, I had a lot of fun writing my novel. It's called McCalllandia. Unless you lived in Oregon at the time, you probably don't know our governor when I was growing up, a man named Tom McCall, but he was really a dynamic and colorful character, and people even talked about him possibly becoming a candidate for president of the United States. So one day, a friend of mine who also admired Governor McCall said, why don't you write the story, imagine a world where Tom McCall actually did become president? So I wrote it. I had a heck of a lot of fun. And, I've loved baseball and history and the Dodgers all my life. And that seed planted all those years ago when I read about Joe Kennedy wanting to buy a piece of the Dodgers, I thought, there you go. That's the story, because as the three of us know, and thousands of others know today, that, going on 60 years later, the theft, and I call it the theft of the Dodgers from Brooklyn, is a wound that still is not healed. And, I thought, well, I can't bring back the Brooklyn Dodgers for real, but I can in my imagination and hopefully in yours as well.
I'm really looking forward to the book. I certainly am looking forward to the book. I don't want to rush you along in writing it, but I wish you would. I'm dying to read it.
Me too.
I really am. I'm dying to read it. It sounds so cool. It sounds really, really cool, because all of us, let's face it, all of us here, like you're from Oregon, and Ronnie is originally from Sheboygan and now in Minneapolis, but I'm from Brooklyn, and I'm going to tell you something. Many of my friends and I have often wondered out loud, suppose they had never moved. What would have happened? How would they have fared if they stayed at Ebbets Field? What would Koufax's numbers look like in Ebbets Field instead of Dodger Stadium? How would Frank Howard do? How would Tommy Davis do? What would happen? You know, and of course we also, the dream that you touched on, Roberto Clemente.
Yeah.
In our outfield and this and that. And you know, and we always, and we thought, God, we would have been, maybe we could have been the Yankees instead of the Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
We could have been the team that won boringly year after year after year after year after year. You know, maybe it could have been us. Maybe, just maybe, it could have been us. You know, it broke my heart and made me happy all at the same time, simultaneously, in 1959, when the Dodgers won the World Series and they beat the Chicago White Sox. There were many Dodgers on that club who played for Brooklyn, and they were only 1.5, 2 years out of Ebbets Field when they won that World Series.
Right.
And I was always jealous that L.A. got the credit for that World Series and not us. And I even pushed it to 1963 when Koufax, Drysdale, and Padres beat the Yankees 4 in a row in 1963. And I wondered,
wasn't that great?
Man, if that could have just been in Brooklyn, it would have been so great.
I
know. And
yes.
It always bothered me. So I guess I wasn't even aware of you and your dream and your plans, and I was always dreaming or wondering what would have happened if the Dodgers stayed in Brooklyn. And if I dreamed it and thought it, I know there's thousands and thousands of other guys that dreamt the same thing. So this book,
of course,
this book is going to be dynamite. I mean, you know,
I think it'd be great. I'm
excited.
Like Peter said, I can't wait for it to be completed. I can't wait to read it. I got to ask you one question, Bill, without giving away anything in your story. Do you have a place in that book for Jackie Robinson post-playing days?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. In this story, Jackie has a very significant role beyond his playing career, which of course never involves a trade to the Dodgers to the Giants, because that was purely an act of spite on the part of Walter O'Malley.
Sure it was.
So yes, both Jackie and Gil Hodges are really central figures from the beginning of the story in 1947 until the very end. I will give you a little clue to how, I started in 47 because this 25-year period just seemed to provide nice bookends. The arrival of Jackie on opening day 1947 to opening day 1972, which celebrates the 25th anniversary of him making history. But any alert fan, as I set the scene on opening day 1947, will know that something's up, because the Dodger manager in the dugout will still be Leo DeRocher. No suspension. Now, how does that happen? And, then the dominoes start falling in different directions, you might say.
I love it.
And again, without revealing too much, but, again, being inspired by reality, but let's say taking it in a happier direction, I found an interview with Dr. Frank Jobe, and here's the key line I took away from that interview. He said, "Gee, if I had thought of the procedure 10 years earlier, it might have been called Sandy Koufax surgery."
That's right.
So,
that's right.
Just let that sink in, guys. Just let that sink in.
It just sank quickly. It just sank quickly into my brain. Koufax doesn't retire at the age of 30. I can see it now. Joe fixes his arm and he goes on to win 400 games. I can see it now. By the way, gentlemen, I just got a brainstorm. 71 years ago today, Jackie Robinson played his first game for the Montreal Royals at Roosevelt Stadium in Jersey City, and he got 4 hits and 4 runs batted in.
Unbelievable. Wow. 71 years ago today.
71 years ago today.
Yeah.
How's that for a debut?
Yeah, that's sure something.
Wow.
Sure something.
Wow.
He was so electrifying. Did you ever see him play, Peter? I'm sure you did.
Oh, sure. I did. And, sadly enough, because I was born in 46, I didn't see him in his prime. Of course, no one really saw him in his prime. He came up when he was 28 years old, for God's sake.
Right, exactly.
His prime, oh, boy, if he came up at 20, imagine that career.
God.
Imagine those statistics.
Can you imagine?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So here's something else to think about.
To answer your question, Ronnie, question, I did see him play. He was a hell of a ball player. When he had his day, when he was on that day, and I was watching on TV or I was at the game with my father, either at Roosevelt Stadium or at the Polo Grounds or at Ebbets Field, Jackie would dominate the game. Dominate the game. Totally dominate the game. Not unlike what we have seen since when Ricky Henderson was in his prime.
Right.
And he would dominate the game. He'd get on base, and it was all over. I mean, he just dominated the game. He did everything.
Yeah.
Jackie did
Unbelievable.
everything. And when I got to see him and realized who he was and what he was, it was already 1955, and he was on the downside. He was 37 years old. But
that's right.
He was a hell of a ball player. There's no doubt about it.
He sure was. I know Carl Ripken once said that Jackie was quick. He says there's a big difference between fast and quick. His hands, his legs, his reactions were split second. You could never catch Jackie in a rundown. He was so quick.
Well, he was a world class athlete. Let's face it. And baseball was probably his weakest sport. He was a world class athlete. World class.
That's right.
Let's get back to Bill Hall.
Yes,
Bill,
absolutely.
Yeah, and to follow up on Jackie, just something I came across within the last year, something I never thought of in an interview. He said, of course we know what a fabulous not just baseball player he was, but athlete, 4 sports star at UCLA. And he said, if he had any idea when he was at UCLA that he would have the opportunity to play Major League Baseball someday, he might not have played 4 sports and put his body through all of that punishment. So just imagine the world, wouldn't it have been wonderful if there had never been a color line in baseball? And Jackie had been able to come up at 20 or 21 and, how much even more fabulous his career might have been.
He actually told me, Bill, one night at dinner years ago, and he said, my legs are gone. If I had to do it all over again, I probably would not have played in all 4 sports. He told me that absolutely. I remember that. It was yesterday. Yeah.
Wow.
Unbelievable athlete.
What an
human being.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right.
But this book project has been so wonderful, connecting me with you guys, with the Hodges family, with Jimmy Campanis and his son Jim, and I wrote a chapter involving the senior Campanis and Grandpa Al, and I sent it to Jim, and he's excited about the book, and he said although he had sort of a Back to the Future moment when he read this draft chapter, and I said, why is that? And he said, well, because my dad met my mom in Los Angeles, and if the Dodgers had stayed in Brooklyn, they probably would have never met.
Never met.
Wow.
I'll be darned.
Well,
I never realized that.
Yeah, so, it's interesting the turns, large and small, that fate can take.
That's right.
Yes, it is.
Another person I've met, not only for this project, but for some other Dodger history projects by phone, is the wonderful, gracious, generous, and still vigorous at 90 years old, Carl Erskine.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I've spoken to Carl several times. He's so wonderful.
Him for this show. I have interviewed him for this show. It's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Yeah.
And he's sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Yeah. Terrific.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this book.
Okay. You guys
I think it's
going
to be fabulous. You got
further.
I want a signed copy.
You'll have one. I promise. Both of you.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Are there going to be pictures in this book?
I don't know. I've got excuse me, guys. I've got a friend who's an illustrator, and I'd love to see him. See if I can talk him into doing some illustrations for it, or perhaps we can do a little photoshopping. That's something that'll have to work, have to wait, but until the project's a little further along. But just for fun, I'll throw in, without giving away how they enter into the story, but in addition to the Kennedy family, some other political figures are slated for cameos in the book, including the son of a certain New York City developer named Fred Trump, his young son and protege Donald, and also a Brooklyn native. Yeah. Also, how about this one? A fellow who shows up on opening day 1972, a passionate Brooklyn Dodger fan who had relocated to Vermont, and who later would say that the loss of the Brooklyn Dodgers helped put him on a path into politics, a guy named Bernie Sanders.
Bernie.
Wow.
Yeah, have you ever come across that story, guys?
No. I know that I've heard Bernie talk about the Brooklyn Dodgers, and it wasn't a phony talk. And it wasn't a phony talk because he talked about guys that were bench players and also rans and everything, so he knew what he was talking about.
He knew the Dodgers.
Bernie didn't just talk about Campanella, Hodges, Snyder, and Ferrillo.
No.
He talked about, the Gene Hermanskys and the, the Bruce Edwardses and the, things like that. So I knew that he was real when he was talking about the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yep.
So, I'll bring some other...
Larry King was such a big Dodger fan from Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah. Larry and his buddies are going to be there on opening day 1972 to reminisce about all their great times at Ebbets Field.
Oh, my God.
Good. And Danny Kaye, hopefully? Danny Kaye was a big Dodger fan. Wrote songs about the Dodgers.
Oh, yeah. I know that song. And let's see. Now, since the Dodgers stay, there's going to be no Mets. So imagine along about 1962, not as a manager, but as an addition to the coaching staff, a guy named Casey Stengel returns to Ebbets Field 50 years after he helped to open it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, in your book, do the Giants stay at the Polo Grounds?
Nope. They end up going to Minneapolis, which was their original plan before Walter O'Malley led Horace Stoneham west. Right. So I think that helps the Dodgers. It helps it helps them hold on, solidify their footing with fans, National League fans in Greater New York.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this
sounds fascinating. Listen, I don't mean to change the subject so drastically, but
that's okay. You're the host.
Well, I've been thinking of this for the last 45 minutes, and I must say something about it because I know I'm going to get feedback from listeners on it, and that I don't believe I'm going to be the first one to tell you this, Bill Hall, but your voice is that, I mean, you're a dead ringer for Dick Cavett.
Really? Interesting. Nobody's ever said that to me before.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
I used
exactly like Dick Cavett.
Wow.
Right.
Go to YouTube. Go to YouTube
I remember.
And put on any Dick Cavett interview, and your timing, your syntax, your grammar, the pitch, your timbre. I mean, everything.
Peter, you're 100%
to me, Dick Cavett. I'm saying to myself, am I talking to Dick Cavett or am I talking to Bill Hall? You sound exactly like Dick Cavett.
You sure do.
Okay.
I mean,
not close.
Not close.
Okay.
Exactly.
You really sound exactly.
It's stunning.
I never even noticed until you said something, Peter.
Wow. Nobody said that to me before, but I did used to work in broadcasting. I did radio off and on for about 25 years. Every time I tried to break into television, they told me I had a face for radio, which is one of the oldest jokes in the business. Thank you for being good sports and laughing. But yeah, so maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know.
Well,
fabulous.
It's uncanny. It really is uncanny.
It really is.
And the next time you're on, I'm going to say, tonight's guest is Dick Cavett. And we're going to talk about other things, and people are going to say, wow, he had Dick Cavett on. That was great.
Yeah.
You sound just like Bill. I'm not exaggerating. 100%.
Okay, how about we can make the topic like baseball and civil rights, and I could
there you go. Right. Or whatever.
Yeah,
you
who
can
knows?
You interview Marlon Brando or whatever. We'll get
there. You go. There you go.
Boy, Peter, you are spot on this one.
Well, I'm telling you.
Oh, cool.
I'm sitting here all night and I'm going, wow, this is uncanny. This is crazy. This is the Cavett I'm talking to. But it's not. It's Bill Hall. And you know something, Bill? We spoke before the show, you and I, and we discussed your book and the book that you're writing now and your plans for the same and everything. And we also said that we were going to segue into a little bit about Billy Cox. I would like to ask you a favor. I would like to ask you if you could come back on the show and we'll do a Billy Cox show.
I'd love to. I would love to.
Oh, it would be great. It would be great.
Instead of trying to squeeze Billy Cox into 5 or 6 minutes, I think if we all three of us do our homework, well, I know you have, Bill.
Yep.
But if Ronnie and I do a little bit of homework on Billy Cox, we'll be able to put together a really nice show on the third baseman from Brooklyn that Casey Stengel called a fucking acrobat. Those are his words. Those are Casey's words.
Yep, that's right.
Got time for one anecdote?
Especially after the 1953 World Series, right?
Yep.
That's how Casey described him.
Yeah, we got time for one Billy Cox anecdote to whet people's interests?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, and it once again it involves Casey Stengel, and in the Mets years, spring training in Florida, and Brooks Robinson goes walking past Casey, and Casey greets him as the second best third baseman he's ever seen, and Brooks says, "Okay, who's the best?" And Casey just said, "Number 5 over in Brooklyn." And
number 3.
He's number 3. Yes. Okay. And Brooks did not argue. Number 3, Billy Cox.
How do you like that? Wow.
Yeah.
So we'll talk all about Billy and kind of an underappreciated guy, I think. So, but I better stop so we've got something for the next show.
Yeah, that would
very
be fun,
underappreciated. And Carl Erskine told me there was no better glove man than Billy Cox. He said, Peter, forget third base, just a glove man. He's the best glove man ever to play the game. And that's coming from Carl Erskine, who was around for a very long time and saw a lot of guys with the glove. And he said Billy Cox was the best ever. And the thing that kills me is that when Billy Cox missed so many years during World War II, he missed 42, 43, 44, and 45, and he contracted malaria. And when he came back to play for Pittsburgh after the war, he was just a shell. I mean, physically, just a shell of what he was before he went. He had lost many, many pounds, and he had shrunken, and he was weak and everything else. And yet, he was the greatest. And after he retired, although offered some jobs, he went back to his hometown and tended bar.
Yeah, I like that.
So we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there. We'll talk about Billy Cox on the next show, and Bill and I will get together on instant messages and personal messages and that, what have you, and we'll set up a date. Hopefully, it's for a week from tonight. We'll see how Bill's schedule is, if he can make it next Tuesday night, and we'll do a Billy Cox show. How's that?
That'd be wonderful. That would be great.
And in the meantime, I would like to thank my co-host, Ronnie Rabinovitz.
Thank you, Peter.
And
it's always a pleasure.
Welcome. You're very welcome. Always a pleasure for me, my good friend. And our host, Dick Cavett. Oh, I'm sorry, Bill Hall. Our host, and me, your host, Peter Trunk. And for Comfortably Zoned Radio, I'd like to say goodnight to you two gentlemen. And I'll see you and talk with you soon. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Anybody there? We're done.